When everything is taken from a person, freedom, comfort, dignity, what still keeps them alive? This haunting question lies at the heart of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, one of the most profound books ever written about human resilience. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, didn't just endure the unimaginable horrors of concentration camps. He observed, analyzed, and ultimately discovered something extraordinary about the human spirit. His central insight? Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. This isn't just philosophy, it's a truth forged in the darkest chapters of human history. Today, we're diving deep into Frankl's complete wisdom, exploring how his experiences shaped a revolutionary understanding of what drives us as human beings, and how his insights can transform our lives today. Frankl's journey began in 1942 when he was arrested and deported to Nazi concentration camps. What he witnessed there would challenge everything psychology thought it knew about human motivation. But from that darkness emerged a light that continues to guide millions of people toward meaning, purpose, and hope. The camps stripped away everything external. Possessions, status, even names became numbers. Yet Frankl noticed something remarkable. Some prisoners, despite having every reason to give up, found ways to survive and even help others. What separated those who endured from those who didn't? The answer would revolutionize our understanding of human nature. Picture this scene: a new transport of prisoners arriving at the camp gates. The cattle cars opened to reveal hundreds of people who just hours before had been living normal lives. Doctors, teachers, shopkeepers, students. Now they stood bewildered, clutching whatever small possessions they'd been allowed to bring, staring at a reality that their minds couldn't process. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed that prisoners went through distinct psychological phases. The first was shock, the overwhelming disbelief that such conditions could exist. New arrivals couldn't process the reality of their situation. They moved like sleepwalkers, their minds protecting them from a truth too terrible to accept. Some would stand motionless for hours, staring at the barbed wire, unable to comprehend that this nightmare was real. Frankl described watching grown men weep like children when they realized their wedding rings were being confiscated, not because of the material value, but because these small objects represented their connection to a world that suddenly seemed impossibly distant. The shock phase was nature's mercy, a psychological buffer that allowed people to gradually absorb the enormity of their situation. Then came the second phase, apathy. This wasn't laziness or indifference. It was a psychological defense mechanism. Prisoners became emotionally numb, shutting down their feelings to protect what remained of their sanity. They stopped reacting to brutality, to death, to the constant degradation around them. Apathy became armor against unbearable pain. Frankl noticed that during this phase, prisoners would walk past scenes of terrible suffering without flinching. They would eat their meager rations when corpses were being carried away. This wasn't callousness, it was survival. The human psyche, pushed beyond its limits, simply shut down non-essential emotional responses to preserve whatever energy remained for basic survival. But the most dangerous phase was the third, the complete loss of meaning. When prisoners could no longer see any purpose in their suffering, when they couldn't imagine a future worth living for, they simply gave up. Frankl watched as physically strong men collapsed, while seemingly weaker individuals continued to endure. He described prisoners who would suddenly announce they were giving up, often after receiving bad news from home or losing hope of liberation. These men would retreat to their bunks, refuse food, and within days would be dead. Their bodies were still functioning, but something essential inside them had died first. This observation shattered conventional wisdom. Physical strength mattered less than mental purpose. The prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or healthiest. They were those who maintained some sense of meaning, some reason to keep going. Some had unfinished work they felt compelled to complete. Others felt responsible for loved ones who needed them. Still others believed that life still expected something from them, even in these horrific circumstances. Frankl met a fellow prisoner who survived because he was determined to complete a scientific manuscript that had been confiscated when he arrived. Another man endured because he believed his children, somewhere in the world, needed him to survive and find them after the war. A third prisoner found meaning in small acts of kindness, sharing bread, comforting the dying, maintaining dignity in the face of dehumanization. Frankl realized he was witnessing something profound about human nature. We weren't primarily driven by the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud suggested, or by the will to power, as Adler claimed. Instead, our deepest motivation was something else entirely: the will to meaning. This will to meaning became the foundation of everything Frankl would later teach. Unlike pleasure, which is fleeting and dependent on circumstances, or power, which is external and can be taken away, meaning provides an internal compass that can guide us through any storm. It gives purpose to pain, direction to suffering, and hope to despair. But here's what made Frankl's insight revolutionary. Meaning isn't something we create arbitrarily or manufacture through positive thinking. It's something we discover by paying attention to what each situation demands of us. Life presents us with situations, challenges, and opportunities, and our task is to find the meaning inherent in each moment. Even in suffering, especially in suffering, meaning can be found. The prisoners who survived had discovered this truth intuitively. They understood that while they couldn't control their circumstances, they retained one fundamental freedom: the freedom to choose their response. This freedom, Frankl realized, was the last of human freedoms, the one thing that could never be taken away. Even in the most extreme situations, we retain the power to choose our attitude. A prisoner could choose to help a fellow sufferer, or to focus only on his own survival. He could choose to maintain his dignity, or to abandon it. He could choose to see meaning in his suffering, or to view it as meaningless torture. This freedom to choose one's attitude in any situation became one of Frankl's most powerful teachings. It's not about positive thinking or denial. It's about recognizing that between stimulus and response, there's always a space. In that space lies our power to choose, and in that choice lies our humanity. Third, we have the freedom to find that meaning. No matter what happens to us, we retain the ability to choose our response. This freedom is what makes us human, and it's the source of our resilience, our dignity, and our hope. It's the one thing that can never be taken away from us, regardless of our circumstances. Logotherapy identifies three main sources of meaning. The first is through creative values, what we give to the world through our work, our contributions, our achievements. This might be raising children with love and wisdom, building a business that serves others, creating art that moves people, or simply doing our daily work with excellence and care. It's about adding something positive to the world, no matter how small. The second source is through experiential values, what we take from the world through our experiences of truth, beauty, and love. This includes our relationships with family and friends, our appreciation of nature's beauty, our encounters with art and culture, and our moments of deep connection with others. It's about being fully present to receive the gifts that life offers us. The third source, and perhaps the most profound, is through attitudinal values, the stance we take toward unavoidable suffering. When we can't change our circumstances, we can still choose how we respond to them. We can find meaning in our courage, our dignity, our refusal to be broken by hardship. We can use our suffering to develop compassion for others who struggle. This third source of meaning was what Frankl witnessed most powerfully in the concentration camps. Prisoners who found meaning in their suffering, who saw it as a test of their character, an opportunity to help others, or a way to bear witness to truth, were more likely to survive and to emerge with their humanity intact. But Frankl's insights extend far beyond extreme situations. He realized that the search for meaning is the central task of every human life. In his therapeutic practice after the war, he encountered people struggling with what he called an existential vacuum, a sense of emptiness and meaninglessness that no amount of pleasure or success could fill. This existential vacuum, Frankl argued, was behind many of the psychological problems of modern life. Depression, anxiety, addiction, and despair often stem not from trauma or chemical imbalances alone, but from a fundamental lack of meaning and purpose. People in comfortable circumstances often ask, "I have everything I thought I wanted, so why do I feel so empty?" The solution isn't to ask what we want from life, but to ask what life wants from us. This shift in perspective is transformative. Instead of seeing ourselves as consumers of experience, we become contributors to meaning. Instead of demanding that life satisfy us, we ask how we can serve life. Instead of focusing on what we can get, we focus on what we can give. This question, "What does life expect from me?" changes everything. It moves us from a passive to an active stance, from victimhood to responsibility, from despair to purpose. It reminds us that we're not just here to be happy, we're here to be meaningful. Happiness, Frankl discovered, cannot be pursued directly. It emerges as a byproduct of living meaningfully. Frankl believed that every person has a unique mission in life, a specific contribution that only they can make. Finding and fulfilling this mission is the key to psychological health and spiritual fulfillment. It's not about grand gestures or world-changing achievements. It's about responding authentically to the specific demands of our particular situation. The responsibility that comes with this understanding is both sobering and liberating. We're responsible for our choices, our responses, our contributions to the world. But this responsibility gives structure and direction to our lives. It transforms random events into meaningful challenges, setbacks into opportunities for growth, and suffering into a chance for heroism. In our modern world, Frankl's insights are more relevant than ever. We live in an age of unprecedented comfort and opportunity, yet rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide continue to climb. Many people, especially young adults, report feeling lost, purposeless, and disconnected from meaning. Frankl would argue that this isn't surprising. When our basic needs are met, when survival is no longer a daily concern, the question of meaning becomes paramount. We can't live on bread alone. We need purpose, direction, and a sense that our lives matter. The solution isn't to create artificial hardships or to romanticize suffering. Instead, it's to recognize that meaning is available in every moment, in every choice, in every interaction. We can find meaning in our work by focusing on how it serves others. We can find meaning in our relationships by choosing to love and support those around us. We can find meaning in our challenges by asking what they're teaching us and how they're helping us grow. When life hurts, and it will hurt, we don't have to ask, "Why me?" Instead, we can ask, "What is life asking of me now?" This question transforms us from victims into heroes of our own stories. It reminds us that we have the power to choose our response, to find meaning in our circumstances, and to contribute something valuable to the world. Frankl's message isn't that suffering is good or that we should seek it out. Rather, it's that when suffering is unavoidable, we can choose to make it meaningful. We can use our pain to develop compassion, our struggles to build strength, our losses to deepen our appreciation for what remains. This is the ultimate lesson of man's search for meaning, that no matter what happens to us, we retain the freedom to choose our response. In that choice lies our dignity, our humanity, and our hope. We may not be able to control what life brings us, but we can always control what we bring to life. Viktor Frankl's legacy reminds us that meaning isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not something we find when everything goes right, it's something we create when everything goes wrong. And it's not something that happens to us, it's something we choose, moment by moment, day by day, throughout our lives. The concentration camps tried to reduce human beings to numbers, to strip away everything that made them human. But they couldn't touch the one thing that matters most, our capacity to find meaning, to choose our response, and to remain human no matter what. That capacity lives in each of us, waiting to be discovered, developed, and deployed in service of something greater.